Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick comparison between the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 on the left and the LG G3 on the right. These are both the Verizon variants of these handsets. You can get them on pretty much any carrier of your choosing. Of course, both are LTE and really offer you some of the best feature sets that you're going to find in a smartphone here in 2014 and presumably sometime into 2015. Now, in terms of pricing, the G3 is the less expensive device. It's also the smaller device, 5.5-inch Quad HD display. The Note 4, a 5.7-inch Quad HD display, so that's 2560 by 1440, but keep in mind that the Note 4 does have a Super AMOLED display. The LG G3 is working with an IPS display. Both of these right now are cranked up to 100% brightness, and it's very obvious which display is more brilliant. And quite frankly, the Note 4 has the best display on the market right now. So when it comes to screens, even though the G3 has a very nice screen, a high res, it was the first of its kind, by the way, I want to point that out, it still cannot stand up to the display on the Note 4. However, in its favor, it does have incredible form factor. I mean, the size of this phone, considering its display size, is still unmatched by any manufacturer in the market right now. So while the Note 4 is a beast of a phone with the best display that money can buy, it is a brick when you compare it to the G3 in many ways. Now, in terms of hardware and pricing, $700 for the Verizon version. I believe you're still looking at $600 for the G3 off contract. On contract, another story entirely, and it always will be because you're tying yourself into 2 years of data contract fees. But when we talk about the processors, the Note 4 does have an advantage. You've got a slight bump up. Here on the right, we're working with the Snapdragon 801. These are both quad-core chips, by the way, which is a very good processor, something you'll find in most of the flagship phones from 2014, but it has started to age, no question about it. Here we have the 805 in the Note 4, which is certainly going to outperform the 801, but in day-to-day performance, very, very close. The GPU, however, the refreshed Adreno chipset in the Note 4 is superior to what you're going to find on the right in the G3. In terms of memory, they both have 3 gigs of RAM. In terms of internal storage, 32 gigs here in the Note 4. You also have 32 gigs in the G3. Both have a micro SD card slot for storage expansion, and both are running KitKat out of the box. Both are going to get Lollipop in good time eventually. Neither purports to be Nexus-like in any way. They both have their own overlay, similar in many ways, but of course different in many as well. I would say the LG software experience is more stock when you compare it to TouchWiz, at least, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I say that because traditionally TouchWiz was looked at as a clunky and in many ways device-killing overlay. I would make the argument that it's only improved over the last several years, and now here with the Note 4, it puts its best foot forward. I mean, really intuitive features across the board, whether we're talking about minimizing screens, having floating applications for multitasking, even the simple ability that when you actually pull up your multitasking tab, that you can seamlessly go through anything and instantly make it a split screen application is just a great, great feature. And Samsung really has built in this whole concept of having basically all of your apps that you've created or initiated still floating in the background until you dismiss them, and really taking advantage of that extra screen real estate. So the split screen is a big feature here, and it does exist in the LG world as well, but it's just not as polished and well done as what Samsung has done with TouchWiz. But there are still people that are going to prefer, again, the more stock feel that you get with something like the G3. In my opinion, the biggest advantage for the G3 really, again, is the form factor. Pricing doesn't hurt either. It's a less expensive phone. Both require accessories in order to utilize Qi wireless charging. But again, take a look at that side by side. You know, this is the Circle case from LG, the S View cover, smart case, if you will, for the Note 4. Both are expensive, overpriced, but they do keep or retain the form factor as best as you possibly can. And when you look at these phones side by side, there's no question the Note 4 is bigger in every single way. Really, the G3 is a marvel when it comes to engineering, and that's why I look forward to seeing what they do with a refresh on this phone, because some new hardware, an OLED display, would really put it right back in the game. When it comes to build quality, I do prefer the build quality on the Note 4. The G3 is definitely, I would say, it doesn't feel quite as well made. And a good example of that is the included stock back cover. Both of these phones have them. This is the one for the Note 4. Often, one thing that'll get me, at least makes me a little bit crazy, is if I take a brand new phone out and when it does have that stock back cover on, if while handling the phone I feel it pop, creak, just any instance of instability, it just makes me feel like I'm carrying around something that isn't well made. And at least until I put the wireless circle charging case on that you're looking at right now, the stock back cover on my G3 at least did have a pop. Now, not every G3 will have that. It's not a strike against the phone, but mine did. That's not something I've experienced in any form or fashion with the Note 4. In terms of Bluetooth, Wi-Fi capability, all of those things, as far as I'm concerned, essentially a wash. You have infrared blasters on both of these so they can be remote controls. The Note 4 does have a fingerprint scanner right here. It also has a heart rate sensor on the back. It also has far superior, I would say, still and video capability, and I say that because the 4K video capture here really is quite usable, and I will be posting some samples for those of you that are curious, even though I never recommend using a phone as your primary camera. Clearly, much of the world does today. The G3 is competent, don't get me wrong, it's just not as good as the Galaxy phone, and Samsung historically has made some of the best cameras that you're going to get on a phone outside of, I would say, Sony, so it's not surprising, but LG really, again, a fantastic offering here, and the G3 is only getting less expensive, which makes it even more compelling. So again, this was really just a quick comparison. Very similar hardware. Yes, the Note 4 has the better display, the newer processor, newer GPU, but again, a wash on the RAM, the infrared. It's got more features and gimmicks, but again, just the form factor alone on the G3 make it so compelling. I mean, just to reiterate what these two phones look like and the stark contrast and what type of room they do require to carry around, there's no question, even though I'm enjoying the Note 4 a lot, when I put this in my pocket, I feel it everywhere I go. The G3, on the other hand, really does resemble a much smaller phone, something akin to really another class of device, even though it is so close to having the same display size as the Note 4. Keep in mind the Note 4 does have adaptive charging, something that's going to become very popular very quickly among manufacturers. The Droid Turbo just launching, also with its own turbo charging. So this is a new trend that we're going to see much faster charging from all manufacturers, and that has to do with the processor on board as well. But both of these great phones right now, some of the best Android and best overall smartphones that money can buy. I still think the G3 is better than the iPhone 6 or 6 Plus, especially put this next to a 6 Plus, and it's just crazy how much smaller it actually is, yet having the same size display with higher resolution at that. And the camera on here is very good. It's just not as good as the Note 4. Keep in mind the Note 4 is a more expensive device. So there are advantages to both. Clearly, more gimmicks here, but I also want to point out that as a phone, the G3 is the better device when it comes to call quality and just people being able to hear me, the speakerphone, everything with that regard does still function better on the G3. So the Note 4 is the better, I would say, supercomputer in your pocket. The all-in-one that really tries to do everything and accomplishes just about everything perfectly, but at the expense of tremendous size and, of course, that increased price difference. The G3 is a little bit older, but in my opinion, this is easily going to remain one of the best phones on the market for some time. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.